You think you have anxiety? You don't. You have a 6-year-old still living inside you, running your nervous system on instructions written before you could read. And there are only 4 versions of that kid. One of them is running your life right now. By the end of this, you're going to know which one, and it's almost certainly not the one you'd bet on. Watch. 2 adults. Same parking lot, same voicemail from a doctor. Please call us back when you get a chance. One taps the screen, returns the call, talks for 90 seconds, drops the phone in the cup holder, pulls out of the lot. The other stares at the screen for 6 minutes, reads the transcript twice, starts cataloging every symptom they've ignored since spring. Their pulse climbs before they've dialed a single number. Same voicemail, 2 completely different bodies, and the second body wasn't built last week. It was built when they were 5, in a house where bad news arrived without warning, and there was nothing a 5-year-old could do but brace. That's not anxiety. That's a 5-year-old still doing the job they were trained to do, back when bracing was the smartest move available. The job is still running. The kid never clocked out. You're not imagining the difference between you and that other person. It's measurable. It shows up in cortisol, in heart rate variability, in brain scans you can pull from any university library. The adult who panics over a 4-word text isn't being dramatic. Their brain is literally a different shape than yours, not metaphorically, structurally different. A study tracking Romanian children raised in institutional care found that by age 8, their amygdalas, the part of the brain that decides what's dangerous before you've consciously decided anything, had grown into a different shape than children raised in families. Not because something was wrong with them, because they were brilliant. Hyper-vigilant kids built hyper-vigilant brains. The brain does exactly what the environment asks it to do. The settings get locked in early, and the body keeps playing whatever song it learned, long after the room has changed. Their nervous system is running a piece of software installed when they were 4. Software that said, when the big people go quiet, prepare. That software worked. It got them here. The only problem is it doesn't know it's not 4 anymore. The kid who scanned faces wasn't anxious. They were reading the room because reading the room was a job. The kid who went silent wasn't shy. They learned silence didn't get punished. The kid everyone called so mature for their age, that kid wasn't mature. They had figured out being useful was the price of being loved. And the brain doesn't forget that lesson just because you turned 25. Now hold this in your head. The last time you overreacted to something objectively small. A text that came back too short. A friend who didn't laugh at your joke. A boss who used a flat tone in a meeting. Hold that moment. Notice the size of your reaction versus the size of the event. Keep it there. We're coming back to it. These patterns feel like you because they're stored in implicit memory. Memory without a timestamp. The reason you don't remember learning to flinch when someone raises their voice is your brain didn't file it as a memory. It filed it as a reflex, a piece of you. And things that feel like pieces of you don't get questioned. They just run. This is where 90% of people get it wrong. They think their adult patterns came from adult experiences. They think the breakup made them avoidant. The terrible boss made them anxious. The friend who ghosted them made them clingy. The data says the opposite. None of those experiences created the pattern. They walked into a room where the pattern was already standing in the corner, waiting to be called by name. The pattern was assigned to you before you had words for it, before you could question it, before you knew there was a you separate from it. And it picked one of 4 shapes. The over-explainer sends a text, then sends another text, clarifying the first, then a third clarifying the second. Rereads sent messages an hour later, looking for how they could have been misread. They learned being misunderstood meant being in trouble, so they over-clarify everything as insurance. Watch them write an email. 3 drafts, 2 softeners, 1 disclaimer at the end. They're not anxious. They're 4 years old, trying to make sure nobody can twist their words against them. The peacekeeper feels the temperature change in a room before anyone else and starts smoothing things that don't need smoothing. A friend gets quiet at dinner. They're already crafting the joke that resets the mood. Laughs at jokes that aren't funny. Apologizes when someone bumps into them. They learned conflict in the house cost too much. So now they pay the cost in advance, every single time, with their own body. The disappearer, warm and present and engaged. And then the relationship gets close, and they're suddenly busy for 2 weeks. Reads messages without replying. Cancels plans the morning of. They learned needing people was how you got hurt. So they pull back. The second things get close enough to matter, everyone calls them avoidant. They're not avoidant. They're 4 years old, getting out of the room before the door slams. The overfunctioner can't sit at a family dinner without clearing plates. Runs the group chat. Knows everyone's birthday. Says, "I'm fine." So often the words stop meaning anything. They learned being useful was the price of being loved. So they exhaust themselves earning a place they were always allowed to have. Nobody worries about them. That's the trap. The whole strategy was designed to make sure nobody worries about them. 4 reactions, 4 kids, all still in the room, all working overtime to protect a version of you that no longer exists. When you hear an adult talk about their parents, not as memory but as present tense, like the rule is still in force today, that's the 4-year-old speaking through their mouth. The reactive adult and the calm adult are hunting the same thing. Safety, belonging, the chance to be seen without getting hurt. The difference isn't character. It's the door their childhood handed them. One door said, "Stay close, stay alert." Another said, "Stay back, stay safe." Another said, "Be useful, be needed, be impossible to leave." Same hunger, different door. And this isn't about parents. Parents are just the loudest case because they were the first. The same machinery shapes how you respond to bosses, partners, strangers. The DM that says just, "Hey," with a period. Now. The moment I asked you to hold. The last time you overreacted. You know who was driving. And here's the part nobody sees coming. Most people assume they're the anxious one. The loud one. The obvious wound. Most aren't. Most are the overfunctioner. The kid who's been working a full-time job since age 6 and just realized nobody's coming to relieve them. The overreaction wasn't panic. It was the kid finally getting tired. The shift never ended. Nobody told them they could leave. Look back at the 2 adults in the parking lot. The one who stared at the phone for 6 minutes. That wasn't the anxious one. That was probably the overfunctioner. The one who's been holding everything together for everyone for 30 years, and just for a moment couldn't hold one more thing. 6 minutes of silence in a parking lot is what an entire childhood of carrying it alone looks like. Finally surfacing. Neither of those adults is broken. Neither is weak. They're both still being parented by ghosts they can't see. The moment you can name which kid is yours is the moment they stop running the show on their own. So name it. Drop it in the comments right now. Over-explainer, peacekeeper, disappearer, overfunctioner. Which one drove your last overreaction? And then send this to the person you've quietly judged for theirs. They're one of the four, too. Saying it out loud is the first thing the kid never got to do. It might be the closest thing to an apology either of you ever gets.